Youth centres are vital to young people. I definitely recall this building as an 11, 12, 13-year-old kid. I spent an incredible amount of time in here, you know, normally doing activities that I would probably never ever have had opportunities to do other than football. Things like um, karate, dancing, street dancing, and even table tennis were things that I learned in this very, very building here for the very first time. It's great to see there is still something going on in there, um, but it's vital and brings back so many memories as a kid. Of a number of the kids growing up in this area, we spend a lot of time in here. To have youth centres is vital, really, really vital. The biggest education, if I look at my last 3 year journey in here, is educating the Football Association that there is a challenge in certain areas of the game, a systemic challenge, if you like, that has actually created barriers that allows entry. And I think before you can go out and promote the opportunity to wider members of the community, I think you need to ensure that what you're promoting is available, accessible, and reflects what it is that you are promoting. And I think one of the challenges is the sport having grown exponentially over the last decades and done so well is that there is a lack of acknowledgement in certain areas of the game that there was a problem and there was a problem and there was a challenge for people from Black, Asians and mixed heritage challenge to access those areas of the sport. So the initial challenge is firstly actually that creating that awareness internally to the challenges and ensure there is a buy-in from those people that work in this organization that there is a challenge and work collectively hand in glove to ensure that we create methodologies, initiatives and strategies to remove those barriers of entry in the first place. And then only then can we then go out and start to promote those opportunities, those people that are coming. Because the last thing you want to do is promote opportunities that aren't really there when they do come into the sport. So it doesn't necessarily mean you wait for one for the other, but I think the biggest curve is having to actually create that understanding, which people on the outside don't see, that actually, yes, there is lack of, but have you thought of the reason why there is a lack of opportunities and representation in those areas of the game? We've probably got the most famous product in our country, i.e. the Premier League. So that exposes our football to even a wider audience from all over the world. And I think that's probably a fair position to sort of start from. Football needs leadership. Football needs match officials, which is what perhaps my role. Football needs a whole wide variety of other participants other than just those that are on the green bit. I think that's where you start to see where the dynamics and the challenges change slightly for black and brown candidates within the game. And I think that's perhaps what my experience is. And this is not unique to the FA, this is industry wide. You know, when you start to get into leadership roles or other roles within various industries that aren't necessarily participation, you start to see less and less black and brown officials. So the challenge we have collectively is why is that? How do we change that? And how do we ensure opportunities that are available to members of communities that look like me or others? So how do we create equity as opposed to equality within the sports of football? I think when you look at the participation aspect of football, I think it's probably fair to take a position that it's something that our community participates in. So at the top of the game, 40% of the professional players come from Black heritage or Black or mixed race heritage. There is a challenge around Asian participation at the very highest level. And if you draw that line all the way down to grassroots football, it becomes about accessibility, about making sure that those areas, those communities also have the same level of participation opportunities as the wider game. I think the FA, it's probably fair to say the FA are doing reasonably well in that area. You know, what does culture look like? And, you know, you never see a challenge until it faces you on. And as you know, I think one of the greatest strength we have in this country, but also the greatest challenge is we have such a dynamic variety of cultures within the UK, within England, that, you know, if you embrace it, it creates so many more vibrant environment, diversity of thought, progressive way of working. But actually, if you've never really embraced it, there is always elements of fear of what is that going to look like from people that have not been in that sort of environment. So that there is a great amount of thought that needs to be given to education, but also training to embrace that cultural reformation journey, that when you are starting to bring people particularly into the sport that I'm passionate about, which is not just football but match officiating. What does the culture look like? And what are the opportunities that it's real that are available to those members of our communities that actually have taken on board your message that there is real opportunity and they want to be part of the journey.